Howdy friends. As you can see, not on the AT anymore. I finished my section hike about a week ago, and I just wanted to kind of go over the entire experience. I thought it would be worthwhile to talk about what it was like, what I experienced, and what my takeaways were. So to start with, let's talk about some statistics. The entire hike took 20 days. Now that 20 days was not all hiking. I took 3 zeros and 1 Nero. A zero is a day where I do 0 trail miles, and a Nero is a day where I do near 0. Usually a Nero is hiking out in preparation for a 0. So in my case, I hiked about 3 miles out from the Osgood tent site, got a ride into town, took a Nero, and then took the following day completely off for a 0. My average was 8.65 miles per day, but that includes zeros. So if you take the zeros out, that average goes up a little bit. Total miles hiked was 173. That is according to my tracker. That may be wrong, but the map prediction was 160 miles. I actually expected it to be slightly under 160 because there was a bypass section due to a faulty bridge, and that cut about 4 miles off the total hike. But with all the side tracks that I did, and just it turned out 173. I spent 5 nights in a hostel, 3 at the Hiker's Welcome Hostel, and 2 at the Notch Hostel. I enjoyed both of those hostel stays, though if I had a preference, I have to say Hiker's Welcome wins out. They had a more homey atmosphere, and it just felt a little less polished, which I personally liked. I also spent 3 nights in hotels, which leaves for 11 nights that I spent on trail. I stayed at 5 of the AMC fee sites, and the remaining 6 were at free sites, mostly at the beginning and 1 at the very end. I did a gear video at the very beginning, so I'm not going to go over all of my gear, but some critical information that some people might be interested. My overall pack weight, when completely full, was 35 pounds. Obviously, when I didn't have a full load of water and food, that would drop down probably to about 25 pounds. Not really sure. I didn't weigh it that way. The overnight temps had lows anywhere from the 60s to the upper 30s. There was one particular night at the Imp campsite where I got a little bit chilly, but that was mostly due to wind and trying to adjust my underquilt. My sleep system was rated for 30 degrees, so the gear that I had was appropriate. Now that it is getting colder, I'm starting to add more colder weather gear to my future hikes. But for what I had was appropriate. And there were a few times when I was a little overheated, woke up with some sweat, and had to vent some heat. Overall, I went northbound, or NOBO. I started in Hanover, New Hampshire, at the bridge over the Connecticut River, right on the border with Vermont. And then I hiked generally northbound. There were 2 sections that I chose to do southbound. The first was Mount Moosilauke. Hiker's Welcome offers a slack pack that allows you to do Mount Moosilauke southbound after spending the night, and then spend the night a second time. That section is notorious in the Appalachian Trail because of how steep it is and frequently how wet it is, especially since there are wooden steps and it's right next to a waterfall. So oftentimes those wooden steps get a little slick. In this case, they were not. It was a beautiful climb up, but I would still rather do something that's very steep going upward than going downward. To me, the down climb is always harder. The second section that I did southbound was Carter Mariah. I did that section southbound because I knew that the northern side of North Carter is just very challenging, very steep, and very technical. And again, I would rather go up something like that than down it. I had been warned while up there that the descent down Carter Dome would be very hard. I did not find it nearly as hard as previous descents down North Carter. So I think I made the right decision in that case. I would say that if I had my druthers and had it to do all over again, I probably would have done the presidentials southbound. The northern presidentials are much harder, and the descent down Mount Madison was really, really hard. It was just a very long day overall, but the rock walking going down Mount Madison at the end of a long day was much harder. I would have preferred to go up Madison, and while I would have had that super steep section coming off of Mount Pierce just before the tent site, that section is very short, maybe a quarter of a mile, as opposed to the 1.5 miles coming down Mount Madison. It is said that New Hampshire is the toughest state on the AT, but has incredibly stunning views. I cannot vouch for it being the toughest state, and I've seen debate that says southern Maine is harder, the Bigelows have more elevation gain, that Georgia is harder because you don't have trail legs and you have a lot of elevation gain. The reality is that New Hampshire is a challenging state, whether or not it's the most challenging. It was absolutely amazing. I enjoyed the hike. I enjoyed the physical and mental push of myself, but mostly I enjoyed the people that I met, some of whom I think may be long-term friends. People like Toe Jam, Dance Party, and yes, those are trail names, Newt, and Jimbo Poppins. They were amazing people, and I enjoyed meeting them and others, and I think that is kind of my big takeaway. I found it strange that I spent almost 3 weeks in the woods, and when I got back, I felt less connected to people than I did when I was in the woods, and that's because of the people that I hiked with. So this finishes up my series on my section hike of the Appalachian Trail. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope if you are thinking about hiking the Appalachian Trail or even just doing a section hike in New Hampshire, that my video may have helped you, give you some information, give you some knowledge. As always, like, subscribe, drop questions in the comments. They're always welcome. Happy trails, and remember, chase your dreams, challenge your limits, and choose joy. Azimuth out.